Mariah and Mariah, we both do a variety of events in the city. And when they kind of asked us, how we wanted things to flow today, in true Mariah Squared fashion, we wanted to do it a little different. So my wonderful friend over here is a talented creative, and I'll say that as the overarching thing of everything she does. But one thing she really does really well is spoken word. So I'm gonna have her go ahead and open up with a piece for you guys today. And we're so thankful she's doing that.
But first of all, the funny part about that is that when we sat down and met with Ryan, Mariah's like, you know what would be cool? If you open up with a poem and you're trying, yeah, I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. And so in the spirit of taking up space, I'm just gonna do a quick piece, just kind of honoring women. Shout out to all the women. Woo-woo. I vow to remain whole this time, to enter and exit with all my bones I've tried, contorting them into halves for peace, rationing for consumption, sizing down for pleasantries. Don't you know? These bones weren't made to maneuver that way, nor stretch in the silence of isolation, hidden by skill, unprotected by day, vulnerably standing at the nexus of sex, class, and race. They were meant to dance upon the arc of our ancestors' wildest dreams, clinging on to a freedom unknown yet deserved. These bones, full-bodied and boundless, were made to expand across tongue, vision, and space. These bones, made of mahogany and strength, weren't meant to prove strong, but were evidenced by rest, by an act of the cosmos, to be both magic and flesh, able and exhausted, made of the soil, composed of light and naked as proof of healing. Do not remember my bones as bridge. My back will no longer bend for easier transport, nor will my bosom feed the masses. Do not remember me as quota, as quiet, as human, or less than human, but here and whole and woman and holding all of my bones. Thank you.
Goosebumps every time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, you are officially at the M Squared podcast episode 1.
Yes. Long coming, long time coming.
Right. So, I would love to kind of pop this conversation off by asking you, or we can both share, what is one misconception that people might have about you or your work, or just something people don't know?
Yes, so that is actually a really good question, and I had to think about this a little bit when she said, she's like, I think we should just kick off with this question. I was like, But I think it really is the fact that, we all have different versions of this, of people putting different personality types and stuff on you. And as crazy as it sounds, I just still do not identify as an extrovert. And that, look, so that's exactly why. And people will look at me crazy for saying that, for creating a space where, women or really even allies too can come network. But at the end of the day, I really truly feel like I recharge at home. At the end of the day, all I want to do is get on the couch and just watch my Netflix, or really just cuddle with my dog, or shout out DJ Grapevine. That's actually my boyfriend. So he's a great addition too when I just want to wind down. So I think that's the biggest thing is really just knowing where I recharge and what makes sense for me, even though people will be like, girl, you are outside all the time. It's like, yes, but no, you might see me when on LinkedIn or whatever, but a lot of times I'm reading your comment from like my couch anyway, so.
No, I resonate with that. I think a lot of times because our work is so public, people assume that, but it's kind of like the Beyonce, Sasha Fierce thing, right?
Oh, we'll be Beyonce.
Beyonce is like introverted, but Sasha Fierce comes to life in her work on the stage, right? So I resonate with that. I would say a misconception about me, oftentimes, maybe if you experience me on stage or performing, a lot of people think I'm like super deep and want to have deep conversations all the time. And I love a good conversation, but I'm probably a lot more goofy and playful and slightly more introverted than people think.
Yeah, and it's funny that she said that because I feel like I kind of brought myself back when I first met her. I was like, ooh, I feel like I'm a little intimidated. Like, I just always heard about great things that she did in the community, and I actually seen a couple of her pieces just like at Butter and a variety of places that she performed. And so I was like, when I got to know Mariah, there's just so many more, things and aspects about her that made her so much more than performing on stage. And one thing she's gonna do is laugh. She's gonna laugh.
Have y'all seen that meme where it's like a very unserious person at this very serious job, have a very big girl responsibilities out here? That's so funny.
Yes. No, I love that. We kind of just wanted to, break into the conversation with that. But I guess we can kind of just go into explaining what we do. I guess we can tell you the more technical version and then the way we would define it.
Yes, because I think a lot of people know you are the founder of Behind the Screen Marketing and the founder of Inbox. You do all of these amazing things, but how would you define or describe your own work?
Yeah, and so like on paper, I feel like, I'm supposed to say like marketing strategy, branding, we do some social media, but really across businesses, I feel like, we're building and connecting, whether I'm building a brand or even building one's confidence to build a brand. In entrepreneurship, there's a lot of times where you do need a coach or somebody to root you on. So whether I feel like I have my marketing hat on or I'm creating space here, a lot of people are looking for resources, they're looking for community, and they're looking to be connected. They're like, we've all heard about like gatekeep, but like a lot of times like, they might just not know about these spaces of amazing people that want to, help them succeed. So I think really just putting myself out there as a builder and connector, aside from a logo or, some copy, is what I feel like I actually do versus like my technical version.
I love that about you. I think that's kind of like what bridges us in a lot of ways. It's just, I don't know how we care for community and bringing people together. Similarly, I think at the heart of my work, we can put on these different hats and we have these different titles, but I think it really is about community for me. I love creating, curating, teaching for the same reasons I love home decor and interiors, right? It sounds crazy, but for me, it's the act of creating sacred spaces that nourish all those who inhabit them. So whether we are at home curating that soft landing, that sanctuary space, I take that same energy into curating galleries, into curating performance and live shows or teaching. For me, it's how can we nourish ourselves? Because this is wellness work to me. This is healing work to me. This is justice work to me. So it's so much bigger than, wearing these titles and saying on paper, what we do. So
yeah. So I guess that's a perfect, leeway into how we met.
That's a good question. We've been trying to figure this out for a minute. So
how did we meet?
So we definitely came across each other in community and throughout events. I think we probably got a little deep. Nigel's looking like, it was at my birthday barbecue. He said it was me. He said
and I was like,
glue. I am the glue to this friendship. Yes,
she threw that out there, and I was like, I feel like we were just in community.
He's like, no, it was on my porch. Yes, Nigel had a birthday barbecue, as he does annually, and we got a chance to just kind of meet each other there and kind of dive in, and then later on through community, we continue to see each other.
Community.
The Madam Walker Legacy Center needed a new marketing organization, new marketing person. I'm like, I got the perfect person. So I hit him my N square, like, hey girl, we need you over here. And we've and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we've kind of just cultivated our friendship through the work that we continue to do, so.
Yeah, and that's what being in community, she knew what I did, in marketing and In particular, they're like, who did the marketing for Black Festival of Joy? And she's like, I know the girl. But it's crazy, even when we started working together, it still was very like surface level. And it was like, you know, we're gonna say hi, we're gonna say, how are you? You got anything special going on this weekend? Maybe how's the weather? You know? But it was crazy though. I got to watch her curate so many different things at the Madam Walker Legacy Center, and a big program they have is called Art on the Ave. So quarterly they rotate different artists. Sometimes it's like solo exhibitions, sometimes it's group exhibitions. But I started to like watch, you know, I think like a year and a half went by and I was watching her, I was like, oh, and I saw the way the artists respected her, and the way that they would come to her if they did have a problem, or they're like, ooh, I wanted to get this piece up tomorrow, but it's still wet. And right, and I've seen her just have grace and grace and grace a variety of different times, and that's something I think I just admire so much. It's just, you know, they're doing events and dealing with creatives with our creative deadlines and stuff like that. You know, it can get a little troubling when you're managing the project and having to kind of act as the business side of things. So I think I just loved what she did already so effortlessly. And so when we set out to create something like this, I wanted to make sure you know, although I'm a lover of art, I respect the art of curation when it comes to artwork. So I was like, yes, I know artists, you know, and we see these artists at these barbecues and stuff too, but there's really a story in what she tells here, and I kind of got to view that before. So I was super excited to work with her.
So she's trying to make me emotional. It is Cancer season, so
Like,
shout out to my fellow Cancers in the room. So I think that was one of the reasons why it was an easy yes for me, right? I think for me, all year, I've kind of been in this space of alignment. When you are a person that does multiple things, it's easy to say, oh, I can do that. I can do that too, or sign me up, I'll do that, right? But then I think when you really start to address capacity, you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do, right? And I think so often in my journey, I've been trying to figure out, okay, because I do all of these things, which thing should I focus on the most, right? And so for me, it was coming back to, what do I want to do? What am I passionate about? What is the thing that makes my heart sing, right? And so alignment has been at the forefront for me. So when Mariah's like, here's this vision, I'm trying to do this thing, it's larger than life, like I just, you know, I want to bring it to life. And I'm like, not only did I feel honored that she called me, but I felt honored because through this friendship, it's beautiful to work with people that you admire, that you get along well with, but it's also beautiful to work with people who share similar visions, right? And so I just think we were in alignment that made it so easy to just say, yes, girl, whatever it is, let's do it. I don't quite know what we're doing, but we're gonna figure it out together. And I think that's kind of how you got this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess we can kind of take it back to even how this came about originally when we talk about vision, right? You know, we knew WNBA All-Star was coming, and you guys can kind of see the different basketball elements around there. But when we have this concept of taking up space, it was like, you know, the first immediate thing is like actual physical space. I know sometimes when we talk about taking up space, you know, it means more of like, you know, I'm taking up space in this career field or whatever, but we really wanted something tangible. And so at first I just wanted to, you know, collaborate on this like woman-centric exhibition. But I reached out to a few art galleries in the area and I kind of had some crickets. So, you know, I kind of went back to the drawing board there and was like, okay, well, like I still want to do it, you know, and, you know, obviously space is a really big issue. With, you know, a lot of retail leases, that's at least 2 years. So I was like, ooh, we're not doing that, you know. So I, you know, first and foremost tapped into some of my resources of just like, who could I call? And actually, the lovely woman right here that I called, you know, I knew Kat did a lot of different things on helping small businesses acquire spaces in the community, like Nap or Nothing, or We Don't Run From Adversity. So, you know, I was like, well, I don't know where to start, so like, let me call her. And keep in mind, Kat, like, we've seen each other around in like, you know, in community, But it was crazy. Like, I'm just so thankful that like I called her and she was just so willing to like share. She didn't ask me to send over a proposal. She didn't try to do any of that. And even from those continued conversations, she's like, what can I do to help? But yeah, long story short, I was actually walking to get coffee over here, and this venue had like tapestries on the door. And I knew it used to be like a chocolate shop. I don't know when she wrapped up, maybe like 6 months ago, or maybe a year ago at this point. But I finally was like, we were kind of having trouble finding a space, especially on a temporary use. And I saw the like for rent sign, so I just called and was like, hey, like, this is what I'm trying to do, like, what's up? And the owner was like, all right, tell me a little more. And he was like, I'll, go ahead and have the space. Like, what can we agree on? And we agreed on 4 months. So like we did about a month and a half of renovations from a whole chocolate shop, like where you guys are sitting, there used to be a whole wall. This actually is a door. We made it didactic. But like all that was exposed and stuff over there. And actually when we came to, tour the space there, Nigel and Mariah were both like, and Nigel, he was like, oh, I don't know. And he kind of made me mad because he was asking a lot of questions. I'm like, we're thankful, like, we don't care if the light doesn't work right now. But it's crazy. It kind of just rolled into more of a beautiful thing. And, we got the lease signed, and that's kind of like when me and Mariah hit the ground running. But at the end of the day, like, obviously money is a factor, and I won't just leave that part out. But when I was trying to, get off this vision, it was actually last December. I just thought about my network and just women that I knew either poured into us in the past financially or connected us financially. And supported the vision. And so I asked them all to get dinner, which was right before Christmas, which was crazy. I was thankful they said yes. But I was like, we got to go soon, So I got 15 women together and was like, hey, I first bought them all food. I was like, that's the least I can do. Thank you for your time. Let's eat, But I told them what I wanted to do, just the overarching vision. I did not have a space at the time. So I was really pitching air, right? And I told them, we want to do this, kind of now we know like a third space where like we can host events, we can have different retail, but retail isn't the bread and butter here. We can showcase artists. And long story short, I think everyone but one said like, I'll come on whether to support us through Boss Babe Brunch at the beginning of the summer or through the space. So that's allowed us to obviously hire and pay people and not ask them to do it for free, even though I'm so thankful Kat was answering my calls. But yeah, then it really fast forward to us sitting on my porch talking about it.
We really had to have vision because we scouted a couple places before we landed on this one. It's very interesting to like go and see some of the vacant spaces that are around the city, which I think there's some gems, that we don't know are out there. But I say vision because you walk into it and you're like, okay.
Try to squint a little harder.
Okay. How much time we got to renovate this? But I knew, we were trying to bring together this shop and the gallery so that when we seen this, even though we had a lot of work to do, it was like, this is the perfect space, right? Perfect space, a walkable area. We can make this happen. I think when it came to bringing the art to life, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a process, and the timeline was interesting. I feel Amaya's eyes.
I know.
No, because Amaya is one of the artists in here, Amaya Mins, and I think with our timeline, right, everyone's schedules are crazy. And nobody's schedule is crazier than a creative who does this full time, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have bills to pay. Mm-hmm. So, I'm contacting some artists, but also wanting to be very, very intentional with who we bring into this space. We had this idea of taking up space. So it was important to me that we pulled in artists who were really impacting and affecting change in their own corners of the world, That was really, and there were so many to choose from. We have so many amazing people, but I also wanted to select artists that were very different from one another, because I think it's important that you kind of get a different feel, that it tells a story throughout. So it was important that the styles were different, and the size and the shape and the vibrancy and the stories were all different, because we want to tell different stories across the board. We are not a monolith, right? We are all walking and creating our own paths and our own stories, and I wanted that to be prevalent throughout the gallery. And so I just kind of jumped out there. I called on some women who I thought would be amazing for this. Thankfully, they all said yes. But the timeline was like, okay, let me get back to you on how many pieces I can do and what I can commit. And by that time, we had secured this space, and I had seen the walls, and I'm like, we need art. Yeah. We need a lot of art, you know? So, you know, it was a process, but thankfully it all came together, and as artists, we're dropping off pieces, and I'm kind of playing with, you know, how we're laying it out and what that story is that we're gonna tell. It all came together, which to me just kind of went back to that word alignment. Everything felt aligned. And we pushed the date up, actually. Yes. Because we weren't gonna open the space until the end of May, and decided to do it right before Mother's Day, which is kind of crazy a little bit.
Yes,
but
it was me, yes, it was me, if you could tell.
I was gonna say that, but Mariah definitely was like, move up the date. I'm like, okay, let me check with the artist, you know. But again, alignment, timing, moving when it feels good, right? I like to say when I'm cooking food, I season by the spirit, right? I cannot give you the recipe. I just know when it's too much or it's just enough, right? So I just feel like we were just moving by the spirit with this whole thing, just like making sure things fell into place. And they did,
Yeah. Just looking at it, I'm like, ah. Yeah, and then obviously it was kind of nice because she kind of got to tackle this portion of the, you know, gallery, and then we really tackled the shop. And because, you know, we started to grow a network over the last 5 years, you know, we've known some small business owners, but I ran into some unique challenges because, you know, when we think about small business owners, you know, there's a wide scale. There's like micro business owners, you know, there's like, okay, I'm doing it a little bit. And then there's the small business owners, I got some employees. So, you know, dealing with a variety of small business owners, but more so having them prep for wholesale, because a lot of people didn't have, you know, a lot of product on them, or when we, you know, had a big opening weekend, we're like, we need new stuff. And, you know, it's like, like frantic. But just even learning that too on just, you know, I feel like we helped a lot of people on the way of getting prepped for wholesale and getting those numbers right, and that, yes, for wholesale, you do have to sell it to me cheaper than you're selling it on your website, you know? So just different things like that we, I feel like we kind of learned together. I mean, even on the gallery space, on just getting it hung up and it like being the salon style, it's a little different than, you know, some of the art shows and stuff we've been to around here. But we did actually have the pleasure, well, going to New Orleans a few weeks before we got the artwork set up, and then I saw a lot of this style down there. I sent her a photo. I was like, it's gonna work, you know? We tried to find like pictures and stuff on like, you know, Pinterest and stuff to compare it to, but it didn't feel like there was a lot of like that looked like this to kind of see how we, you know, would space it out. But I feel like with also the help of my wonderful sister, I can't, where she's at in here, back there. Yes, Whitney, she actually has the floral company too outside. But I was like, ooh, I'm buying all these products. How's it gonna look when we slap, you know, is it gonna look like a yard sale when we slap it together, you know? So just having to be intentional about like what products and stuff. And she really has that eye to where when she's thinking about retail and, you know, how it's gonna be displayed at the end of the day, you know, even thinking functionality on grabbing it and stuff with the small space, you know, that we do have. So it really did, you know, take a team to come together, a lot of trust. Because I did move the date up, it kind of shortened my time on being able to like review the artwork and stuff like that. And by that time, like, you know, she worked with me to be like, okay, here's who I have lined up. But I didn't have, you know, a good idea of all the pieces. So I kind of was just like, you got it, girl, you know, you got it. But it was crazy just to see her do her thing. I came in here and peeked, you know, because I couldn't let all the way go. But I came in here and peeked. She had all the artwork laid out, and she was like jigsawing it. She's like, no, this. So I'm just so thankful for the trust that, you know, we've built along the way. And yes, it felt like, you know, like, ooh, you know, like dipping your toe in the water. But doing it with Mariah has been just such a blessing at the end of the day. So
Yes, I
I was like, let me.
no, because if you cry, then I'm gonna cry. I want to piggyback on that because I think there's something to be said when you are running any kind of business, any kind of organization, and what it looks like to relinquish control, right? And that's a huge thing, and we both have tons of experience with putting together teams and having these big visions. And sometimes when you bring people onto your team, your hope is that they would care for this baby the same way that you care for it, right? And sometimes that doesn't always happen. And what I realized is that when you are leading a team or cultivating a team, it's not always for them to see the vision, but for them to believe in it, right? And then for you to pull people in and allow them to play to their strengths. And so there's something incredibly beautiful to be said about relinquishing that control and allowing your people to just flourish in their areas. And I think in a lot of ways, that's how this space came together, because Mariah flourished in her areas, right? She marketed the whole thing and did her thing, but she was also very intentional with a lot of the logistics and who you pulled in and how we put it together and all of those things. And then in this space, I got to just zone out as an artist, right? And I wanted to highlight that the beautiful thing about curating this as a performer and as a writer, because I am not a visual artist, but I love the stories that people tell, and I can look at a piece, and to me it's its own language. It's its own poem, it's its own story. So how do I weave these things together to tell the story that the artist wants to tell, but also the collective story that we want to tell? And so it's just been a beautiful process of leaning on one another, trusting one another, and having fun in the process.
A little margarita on the way.
Margarita never hurt nobody.
Yeah.
But it's just been such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure to work with you, friend.
Yay! So look, the pleasure is mine. So I guess we'll get back to our program here now that we had some fun. So I guess how do you take care of yourself on, we talk about all the work, we're doing all the work, we're, here bright and early. How do you take care of yourself in the in-between?
That's a good question. So I've been finding these like small joys in things. And for me, it's being able to grocery shop and cook, right? That's one of them. And I know for some people it's like, but I love to cook, and I love to cook for people and hold space. And so being able to go to the grocery store and take my time and select my veggies and go home and clean them and put on a jazz record and vibe out with a glass of wine, that's a time for me, okay? So I think I've been trying to prioritize having that downtime, really setting boundaries, right? So not answering things after a certain time if I don't have to, giving myself time to unwind. I got back on the mat this week and restarted my yoga practice. That's been really, really beautiful. And then finding more soft, loving spaces with friends and family where I don't have to do, right? I think so many times we're used to having to organize the things and having to curate the things and having to lead the things, and we love it. We love doing that work. But I think being invited into spaces where we can just be, where we can laugh, where we can let our hair down, that's been beautiful for me.
Yeah, and it's funny, we talked to Ryan about this ahead of this, and it's just crazy we were thinking about how many things we actually show up to that we didn't necessarily have our hand in, and Creative Mornings was one of that for us too, where we just was like, ooh, this is so great. This is so great. They're like, it's because you're not behind the scenes too, okay? Like, and that's, kind of what we're craving at the end of the day is like, sometimes you don't want to know what's behind the curtain, like just to be able to sit in the audience with your coffee and just, this is great. So I totally second that too. Mine is a little cliche because I want to say like reading and journaling, or something like, doing yoga on how I decompress, but I do love that massage. I do love taking that vacation, okay? Yes, we can journal a little bit in between, but
You said on the island.
yes, on the island, yes. I was like, not grocery shopping. That might be, oh my goodness. Oh. But you know, I think that's why it's important though to find the way you recharge, you know, because that made me just shake over here. Yeah, my piece is having someone, the DoorDash go get the groceries for me. But yeah, I just think that's so important on also having those spaces that you can disconnect and not think about work. And sometimes we try to blend it, especially as creatives. We're like, we love what we do. We love it, you know? Why wouldn't I want to be here? This is not work, you know? But I think when you finally get intentional about like taking it all the way out, you really do see a difference.
Yeah, yeah. And side note, if anybody has any good book recommendations, I love a good book, you know, so that's been a pleasure too this year, being able to just like go. I feel like we're so busy, but like I've been so serious about being able to complete some books where I'm like, all right, I'm going home at this time, phone is on D&D, and that's my time to like reset. So yes, super grateful.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good time to even plug in boundaries too. I was kind of like in the weeds and was going like, you know, a mile a minute, and I actually hit up Mariah like a couple weeks ago and was like, you know, can you do X, Y, and Z? And it was kind of in the evening, and she was like, I'm relaxing tonight. I was like, oh, okay, you know, I was like, we're relaxing tonight, you know? But, you know, it wasn't one of those things where I was like, you know, yes, I'm trying to go a mile a minute, but someone I'm, you know, working on this with wants to take a pause, so we're gonna take this pause tonight. So I think that's also not only trust, but like respecting the boundaries when you're like, it's too much, or sometimes when, you know, life was busy, we're doing all these different things, and you have to hit them with I gotta cancel the meeting today. And you don't want them to think that you're like not invested in stuff, but like, I think knowing who you're working with's intentions, and, you know, hopefully they're inherently good to where you don't think, you know, like, oh, she didn't want to meet with me today, or oh, she's too busy for me. So I think also like having that like relationship where you can respect each other's boundaries is really important too to flourish.
I agree. So can you talk about just, because I think it goes back to finding that time to recharge. Yes, while we were bringing this space together and doing all these things, can you also talk about maybe some of the other things that you were doing simultaneously? Because we have like all these other things.
Yeah.
So maybe what has life looked like in your schedule and in your work outside of in-boss space?
Yeah, so the other hat of me is behind the screen marketing. So a large portion of my time, I'm at the Madam Walker Legacy Center. So, you know, we just got done off a 3-day Legacy Fest this last weekend. So that's why our voices are a little raspy, but we're just recovering. And then obviously I have another beautiful festival, Black Festival of Joy, which, you know, Gang also helps power. But, you know, we're about 2 weeks away from that. So it's been kind of all hands on deck, aside from obviously regular clients, trying to show up for friends and family, you know, birthdays all coming up, you know. So I think it was too just trying to carve out not only business, but like making sure I was still showing up for friends. A big thing too is making sure I make time to congratulate or like make sure partners feel, you know, like appreciated and celebrated, especially when they've dedicated time and stuff like that. So that's been like a back of in my mind this week is like, oh dang, I gotta send, you know, blah, blah, flowers. Like, I don't want her to think that, you know, I didn't really appreciate it. So I feel like too, that's just wearing the hat of being a CEO, you know, you're like, as a small business owner, you're like, oh, like, is my people good, the team good, the partners good? I feel like that would be like the biggest thing, and all the, you know, projects they're gonna come regardless, but like, taking time to be intentional takes time, you know?
Yeah. And let me say, I did some work for Mariah for behind the screen, and Mariah has clients. So when I see all of the clients and all the work that she's carrying, it's like, wow, like you're really doing this, friend. Like you need to be on that island. Like book that vacation. I fully support. So yes, there's been so many things. I think 2025 for me has been beautiful and busy, but I'm so grateful for it. I opened this year with my own exhibition at Gallery 924, kind of debuting some work, poetry, visual art, bringing some artists in there, and that came off of my thesis work, but then I do oversee programming, events, and curation at the Madam Walker. So tons of events back to back, and really major partnerships too. And then the Arts Council had things, and I had the pleasure of like curating their entire Art and Soul showcase, and just really being able to bring that vision to life on a grand scale on stage. And then we had the festival, the 3-day festival, the block party. And thankfully, I was blessed to get the Artists at Work fellowship. And so,
let her rest.
And so it's been an incredibly busy year for us, but again, it's been a year of aligned opportunities, taking the leap, kind of betting on ourselves in different ways, believing in ourselves, and leaning into community, for support. So all of that was happening behind the scenes while we were bringing this together. So.
Yeah. And we turned 30 this year, so
We do.
like, we're planning for those too. So
Yes, we are. It is cancer season, and so I would like to invite you to sow into a cancer's life. Birthday's in July, her birthday's in December, so it's a great year.
Yes, I know, both named Mariah, both turning 30 at the same time, working
we were
together.
meant to be.
So I guess we can kind of start moving into wrapping up.
Yeah.
And I guess, what would you say that you need? We talked about all these different things, we talked about taking care of ourselves, but at this next phase, and like, especially what you take on next, what do you feel like you need in this next stage?
I would say it's a twofold thing that may sound like they're contradicting each other, but they're not, I promise. The first thing I would say is I would love, again, to come to more things and support more things where we can just kind of let our hair down and not be at the forefront or, running all the things behind the scenes. So just being invited into more loving, soft spaces, I would enjoy it. If you've got a book club, invite me, I want to come. And in true, like, introverted, extrovert fashion, I want to be invited. I might not always come. But please invite me. Please invite me. I need
Don't
that.
count me out.
Right, don't count me out, please, because they don't be in my feelings. Like, they invite me. Okay, invite me. I would love to be there. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, I just want to continue to do more of the things that I love, right? So if there are opportunities to bring, for us to collaborate, for me to bring my expertise into whatever your vision is and vice versa, whether that looks like performance, workshopping, curation, I would love to collaborate and do the thing. So, yeah.
I love that. And that's why you made me kind of have my answer too. I was like, what do I need? I'm like, we need more of M squared. So just even like collaborating on projects like this that are fun, that, are just like building friendship along the way. I think we've got so many different beautiful things that have come out of this, and even just different opportunities that we're excited to announce, hopefully, soon, but just different things that we can kind of partner on. Hopefully we have an opportunity just to showcase like a different exhibition too, on just the different themes and visions that we have, and have, the more we meet, the more I'm like, stop having these ideas, but definitely on the other hand of like Emboss, like what I need is just definitely tell people more about the space, tell them about what we're doing. If they're, especially like a micro business owner where they're like, or just even if they're senior leadership and leaving to become an entrepreneur for the first time, I feel like I've heard it all on where people are just looking for space to, say that, I don't know what I'm doing yet, can you let me know? Or even if, you're wanting to get off your own stuff and you need some, help or encouragement there. That was the whole thing about taking up space, is that there's a responsibility to also bring people along with you in that. And so I feel like we did that really great with, not only 7 artists in the gallery, but we have about 15 women-owned brands in the shop as well. So, I just think about like, with the more we take this stuff on, the more hopefully we'll be able to reach. And maybe it's, 30 women-owned businesses next time. And then we have, 20 artists in the gallery. So I'm just excited for what's to come. Just carrying out those visions, not being scared. Even when the budget doesn't align, do it anyways. And do it anyways doesn't mean go into debt. It means do it at the scale that you can do it at right now, okay? So just keeping that in mind, like sometimes we, especially, I know there's a lot of creatives in the room, we're like, ooh, I can't do it yet because that's not the way I wanted to do it. And I think there's a happy medium, you know, you don't have to like, you know, do the least a bit of effort, but you know, really trying to use those resources, stepping out of the creative a little bit and kind of putting on your business hat on, you know, how we can fund to get our different ideas off and, you know, thus take other people with us. So I just want to take more people with me. That's why I'm like, let's just definitely keep growing and, you know, shooting for the stars, even if it's, you know, kind of scary at the time.
Yes, and if I could add one more thing to that in terms of doing it anyway, doing it scared, right? Do it with intention. Move at your own pace. I think everyone in this room does beautiful work in whatever field or lane or industry you're in, but I think it's really important for us to have an intention and to move with genuine passion and intent. And when you do that, you're automatically on a path to your people, and your people will find you. It's not about competition. It's not about creating it fast. It's not about it's about moving at your own pace so that you can see the vision through. Have the vision, create the vision, set the vision, and then work the plan and execute well. And I think a lot of times we have great ideas, but we might, you know, need some work in the execution phase, or when it's like maybe not time to do a thing. Maybe you have to sit with it for a little longer. Maybe you have to meet some more people. But I think our greatest asset is each other, right? So have genuine intent, move with intent, and connect with your people, and it'll happen.
Yeah.
Some beautiful things will happen. So yes, thank you all
Yes,
so much.
thank you.